things happen. Adults drown, So again, it's how do we shift our society and have that awareness and raise our children, just like buckling a seatbelt. We all know at a very young age that we have to buckle our seatbelt every time we get into a car. We need to understand that, hey, if we're on a boat, if we're on open water, we should be wearing a life jacket. Like, let's just get this into a normal part of our conversation and be accepting that this truly does save lives.
Welcome to Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan. I'm Dr. Dan. This show is about making the world a more loving, accepting, and compassionate place, one parent, one person, and one child at a time. The key to raising healthy and engaged kids is for parents to seek the same in their own lives while striving to be the best versions of themselves each day. No matter who you are or where you came from, with increased awareness, you can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint for your children, your family, and all those you care about, while living your own life to the fullest. Today's show is Drowning in Silence with Chezik Tsunoda. Chezik is a mother of 4 boys, a documentary filmmaker, and the founder of No More Under. She's passionate about drowning prevention with a specific emphasis on equity in aquatics and expanding water safety accessibility. Her commitment to this effort can also be seen in her legislative advocacy, which we'll be talking about today. Additionally, she recently produced, directed, and starred in the featured documentary Drowning in Silence, about the grief she experienced after losing her son to drowning. This is an individual who is living her life with purpose, with awareness, and with courage. Chezik, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dan. I really, truly appreciate you having me and just the platform that you've created.
So I purposely saved watching the documentary until yesterday. It's important for me to immerse myself in the experience prior to having these connections. And to say that I was moved, it is an understatement. It is so powerful. It is so emotional. It is in many ways gut-wrenching, I have to say, as a parent, and also the hope and the mission. It's something that I've been so looking forward to talking about with you, to support you and all of the other families who have been victims to drowning, to get the word out. So your mission and Yori's life saves and impacts so many.
Yeah, it is. I like to say that it's a heavy but hopeful film, because you definitely need some tissues to get through it. But as you talk about awareness and even self-awareness, I think it's really important to not hide behind the facade that everything is okay. I walk through the world every day like everything is okay, but my son is not here, and it's hard.
Yeah. Again, understatement. And you more eloquently captured what I was trying to say in terms of the gist of this is it's hard and it's hopeful. There's hope. For the benefit of our listeners, please let everyone know your story.
Sure. I will just start with prior to being a mom of 4, I used to work in film and television. So that was kind of my before mom life. And then, oh my gosh, I fell in love with being a parent. I had 4 boys in 5.5 years. So juggling a lot and busy. And then in 2018, my son Yori drowned in a backyard pool. And again, devastating. I can't, as much as I try to express the gravity of how that feels, I imagine because we are talking with parents here, they can understand that. I kind of kept moving because I had to, right? I had three other boys and really had to be there for them. I don't know if I would be here if it weren't for my children. I had a 1-year-old at the time that I still had to get out of the crib. I was still nursing, all of that. And about a year after, it was literally the anniversary of Yori's death coming up. I took a chance and knew that I was supposed to do something and shot a small little weekend of what will or would be the film, and realized that people don't know the information. It's not out there. And oh my gosh, content shifts people's perspectives so intensely.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the course of the next 2 years, I went around the country and interviewed other people who had lost children from drowning, whether physically or mentally. You know, there's a child in the film named Fabian who is still alive
Mm-hmm.
after going through a drowning incident and seeing what his family is dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. So I was just called to do this, and I'm hopeful that it does make an impact for families, parents, pediatricians, anyone that touches a child's life.
Mm-hmm.
Truly.
Mm-hmm. And it already has, as evidenced by some of the content in the film and the advocacy, which we'll talk about. One in so drowning, the highest cause of number one cause of death for children ages 1 through 4, and yet we as a society don't take it like that compared to other things that we know cause death, right? Guns and drugs and severe depression, all these other things that end with death. There's water, there's pool, there's splashing, there's swim lessons for some segments of our population.
Mm-hmm.
Were you shocked by this when you immersed yourself by by calling and experience, or did you know some of this before?
Here's what I knew before. I knew that my kids needed to know how to swim. I'm fortunate. My family, I took lessons at the YMCA. I didn't make it to shark because I was scared to dive, but I knew I'm supposed to get my kids in a pool and have swimming lessons. My kids did have swimming lessons. I did not know that it was the number one reason that they could die.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also, I don't want parents that have children beyond the age 5 to look away because it's the number 2 reason leading up to 14.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a tricky one because we're not waiting for any doctors. No offense here, but we're not waiting for doctors. We're not waiting for cures. We're simply waiting for a societal shift
Mm-hmm.
of water is fun, but water can also be dangerous. And we need to know how to protect ourselves. That's all it
Mm-hmm.
is,
Yes.
truly. And it's
Yeah.
100% preventable.
Right. And when you say it that way, it sounds so simple. And for you to say it's 100% preventable is really important for everyone to hear, because that means so much of life is out of our control, and your experience out of your control, and the other individuals in the movie and stories in the movie, so powerless, feelings of such powerlessness. And here there are concrete steps that people can take. And I if would like you to share a little bit more about your story, because I think for me, listening to it and then thinking back of all the pool time with our kids, I'm like, I would have done the exact same thing. Like the exact same thing. This wasn't a situation where a child, which happens unfortunately a lot, a child wanders into a pool all by themselves and no one's looking and no one knows. This was a regular daily situation. It's summer now. This is happening right now all over the country.
That's right. And in my case, and many cases, there were adults all around. So there's an 88% chance that an adult is there when a child drowns.
Yeah.
88% chance
Yeah.
that at least one adult is present. And in my case, I was present. There were two adults in the pool. His dad was in the pool. And it really is this case of everyone thinks someone else is watching.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why one of the I guess one of the most important things to have when you go to any body of water, whether it's a pool or a beach, is a water watcher. And it seems so simple. Oh yes, someone to watch the water. But we don't get it that if I read a text message and answer a text message, a child can drown. An adult can drown.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a critical moment. I'll tell you as a mother that in the film, I say it, I had a sense, but I really, Dr. Dan, I knew. I specifically in that moment said, "Where's Yori?" And we had a little miscommunication that really led to the death of my child. There was a nod to me and I thought, oh, he's over there. And I didn't follow that nod to say, well, is he over there? And I'm not in a blaming space at all about it. I could have put on a life jacket. Yori was not a strong swimmer. And in fact, he was in swimming lessons weeks before and was screaming, "Mommy, don't make me swim." And I was like, okay, we'll do it in a couple weeks. I had him signed up for lessons, so I guess biggest picture with my story and a lot of stories, and why I think sometimes we don't hear a lot about it or pay a lot of attention to it, is because there's shame around this. There's pain around this. And so it's not like there's news cameras there every time someone drowns or every time someone is taken to the hospital because they drowned and are, attempting to, be okay. And so we don't hear about it unless a celebrity's child drowns, but this is something that happens all through the year.
Right. Well, I think the statistic was 3 drownings a day. Something crazy, like children, right? Or in general, is it children? Three a day, children, or just anyone, humans?
I'm not great at math, Dr. Dan, I have to admit, but there's approximately 1,000 children a year drown and die, so fatally drown, and then 8 for every one of those children that drowns, 8 children go to the emergency room, and some of them have lasting neurological difficulties.
Yeah. And as you talk about, so we'll save some of the information for folks to see. I want to not spoil everything, but Fabian and watching Fabian's family and Fabian's life and who Fabian was and who Fabian is now, and all still holding out hope like his parents, is devastating. And, let's go there right now, because this is as the arc of the story continues. But there was this, really, powerful conversation with you and Roxy's parents, who feel responsible in a different way than your experience, and you say the difference of they weren't there and they have to live with not being there, and a decision they made for Roxy to go to a summer camp, and there's that experience, and then there is Fabian's parents' experience of, okay, he didn't die, but wow, look what they have to live with 24 hours a day. And then there's your experience. And as you point out, like, there's no invalidating or better than or less than, but what has your evolving thoughts been about all these different types of lifelong consequences to how these things happen?
That's a great question. I think I what I really sit back into is just it didn't have to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's why I'm out here screaming at the top of my lungs. Doug, Roxy's dad, is screaming at the top of his lungs. Those of us that experienced and have experienced this
Mm-hmm.
um, don't want it to happen to anyone else. And
Right.
unfortunately, it's something that you don't think is going to happen to you.
Mm-mm.
And that's why, I've started an organization, and we started with drowning prevention. And then you realize people have a deaf ear to that.
Mm.
So let's move into water safety. Let's move into get yourself educated, get your kids swimming, because we know what can make a difference here. And so let's go the positive route and then just sprinkle in, by the way, just so you know, yes, your kid can swim, but I can tell you about Drennan. And Drennan was on the swim team. And at 17 years old, drowned in front of a lifeguard. It's like things happen. Adults drown. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's how do we shift our society and have that awareness and raise our children just like buckling a seatbelt. We all
Right.
know at a
Right.
very young age that we have to buckle our seatbelt every time we get into a car.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
need to understand that, hey, if we're on a boat, if we're on open water, we should be wearing a life jacket. Like, let's just get this into a normal part of our conversation and be accepting that this truly does save lives.
Mm-hmm. Yori, as a person who spent a lot of time with kids and as a focus in child and adolescent psychology, I can say that Yori was and is a special soul. He it exudes from him. Um, he didn't want to be in the water. He wanted to be in the air, right? He was a future pilot. He was a future
Mhm.
like he is in the air, man. He is flying somewhere and with you, and he so full of life and love. Um, I just have to share that with you because he really he got in me. I didn't get to meet your other kids as much in the film, but he is a special soul, and his life has tremendous purpose, although tremendously short.
I really appreciate that. As a parent, we all say, "Oh my gosh, my kid's so amazing," but I am grateful that you were able to pick up some of who he,
Hmm.
was, and he really was an awesome, amazing kid. I was
Hmm.
sharing, and it's a weird one because I don't want to put this on him necessarily, but I did a talk not too long ago with a woman, Stacy, from the Autism Society, and autistic children drown 80 times more than average.
80.
80, 80.
Wow.
And I obviously Yuri is not here, and I don't even want to put that, quote diagnosis on him necessarily, but I consider how he knew every single plane in the sky. I consider
Hmm.
how focused he was, like, on certain things, and how just like he was so intelligent. He was 3 years
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just one of those things. There's so many questions. There's so much that I've stepped away from, honestly, of the story over and over again,
Hmm.
and what I could have done different over and over again, and even conversations that I had weeks leading up to it that were almost a sign in the strangest way.
Hmm.
I've stepped back a little bit from that, but every now and then I'm like, well, gosh, what, you know,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
it's all of the questions when a
Right.
child leaves you too soon. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as a psychologist who specializes in gifted children, I can tell you he was one of those. He was he was intense. He was sensitive. Yes, he knew the model of every plane. He The way he connected, um, with neurodiversity, it takes form over time, and if things become more clear over time, and
Mhm.
so like you said, who knows about those characteristics? But I understand what you're saying. But I also want to really validate. Um, Man, this guy had superpowers in just his presence, and also I thought it was really noteworthy. His pediatrician who came on and you interviewed, someone whose life has changed and who will also change other lives. Her comment was so spot on about the Yori that she experienced, every once in a while, which we see in all the videos in the documentary,
Mhm.
and him lying in the hospital with such peace, was such a juxtaposition to his existence.
Mhm.
Right? It's almost like it was surreal to see him laying in peace and tranquility, because that's not he was so charged and energized
Mhm.
in life.
No, for sure. It's yeah, those were hard days for sure.
Yeah.
Those are hard
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. I learned more about the disparity, the impact of slavery, the impact of continued institutional racism,
Mhm.
and the statistics about African Americans, and those that learn to swim and those many who don't, and why. And that's also, I know, part of your mission is we have to talk about this. So let's take give us the historical perspective of why that statistic of African American 64% of African Americans have no swimming ability.
That's right. Little to no swimming ability, and Black and brown children are 4 to 5 times more likely to drown. And so, if you consider that pools uh, in the 50s and 60s did not allow Black or brown individuals in them. So my grandma was not able to swim. And even some of the beaches actually were white only.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're only 13% likely to learn how to swim if your parent does not know how to swim. So think of all of the Black and brown people that were not allowed in swimming pools, or, let alone being taught to swim, and how that has continued to impact generation after generation. And at some point, if you don't have exposure to water in that way, it's scary to you. A lot of people that I've spoken to, their parents just say, stay away from the water, don't go in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, we look at having a bit of equity here because of the lack of access and the fears and cultural things that just don't allow space. And so I'm somewhat on a mission. Yes, equity in aquatics is huge. Our mission with No More Under is to get Black and brown children, also just under resourced families, in pools, um, exposing them to water and how to stay safe around water. I also truly believe that this is something that should be offered, whether it's in schools or our city programs, because think of it as a parent. You have dance class, you have baseball, you
Mm-hmm.
have um, what is the extra math curriculum? You have
Right.
all these other things that,
Enrichment, all the enrichment.
yes,
Yes.
that's right. And we are just expected to do that now.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
expected that your kid is in all these things. So there are financial barriers. And there's honestly there's wait lists. Like, we have over 1,000 people on our wait list for free swim lessons. And
Wow.
I know that there's people on wait lists for paid swim lessons.
Mm-hmm.
So if at all possible, um, having a city program or a school program, at the very least, where there's education,
Mm-hmm.
would ensure that no child is left behind. Would
Mm-hmm.
ensure that all children have a basic understanding of what to do if they're drowning, what to do if they see someone drowning,
Mm-hmm.
and having awareness that, hey, ask before you get in the water. Tell someone. Think about adults that go out paddleboarding and don't tell their roommate that they're going out paddleboarding and they're missing. And then, oh, by the way,
Right.
these
Right.
are all foundational tools that will not only save our children, but will save our adults, and then
Mm-hmm.
raise, then their
Yeah.
children will, it's generational change for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And that wonderful program in Southern California, in Pasadena, I believe, that you feature, right? I mean, amazing. Those schools are, they're field trips, 15 1-hour lessons, swim lessons as part of their curriculum
As
for
part of their
everyone. Amazing.
30 years, 30
Yeah.
years they've been doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I just assumed that I would put this in the film and everybody would say, oh, this is it. Like, let's go.
Right.
Obviously, it's money. There's a lot that goes into it. But the biggest thing is, I personally think, as parents, if we start demanding this, that's when perhaps the
Right.
shift happens. Why
Right.
isn't my child learning how to swim?
Right.
Like, okay, we're teaching Gaga Ball. No offense to Gaga Ball.
Right. Right. Right.
But we spend, how many hours learning
Yeah.
Gaga Ball when we can take, a short moment of that and
Right.
teach a life-saving skill.
Right.
And let's not talk about incorporating CPR into that at a certain age, which I can go on
Yeah.
and on. I
Yes.
can go on and
Well,
on. It seems
that's
so
why we're doing
simple.
this. That's why
It
we're doing
seems,
this.
yeah, and it seems
Yes.
so simple to me.
Yes. Well, it is, right? At face value, it is that everyone should have water safety education and every child should learn to swim. Like, that is very straightforward. And then, for example, that program in Southern California, one of the staff said it's $250,000 to run this program. So since a lot of our society and politics and advocacy, it all like goes with money, like, let's just push aside for a moment all of the life-changing grief and all of the terribleness that goes with the loss. And if you just talk about money and you talk about $250,000 to teach however many hundreds, if not more, kids to swim, just think of the lack of cost of all of the immediate medical response and the long-term medical issues. If you just look at money and don't even look at the psychological human life aspect of it.
That is correct. And honestly, there is a money that we can look at of how much it takes for all of the emergency room visits, those ambulance calls. That is millions of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
millions that we could shift and save in a preventative mode.
Right. Right.
But yes,
Yes.
yes, I tend to put things, I have to compartmentalize just to
Mm-hmm.
get through a day.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you want to talk about, yes, the psychological impacts of families, of my children,
Right.
dealing with the loss of their sibling. Yeah. But there's so much that would shift there.
Yes.
How much?
It's actually beyond words to describe. Advocacy. So you also interviewed a pioneer in advocacy, very inspirational, who lost a child to being stuck to a drain in a hot tub. And I had a flashback of when I was probably a teenager, that was starting to happen. And it was almost like maybe, yeah, young teenager, I think. And it was the reason it's so in my mind, it was a similar response to after watching Jaws, where like, okay, I'm not going in the ocean anymore, or I got to, I don't want to go in the ocean. And then I remember being in a hot tub and just being afraid of being sucked in. And so, her story is so powerful and changed legislature, and now all public pools have these safety covers. So hundreds of thousands of lives have been saved in the last 15 years. I imagine she is someone who is inspirational for you on your path to Yori's Law.
That's right. Nancy Baker, her loss was 20 years ago. And that was part of the reason I wanted to speak with her, because the other folks in the film have had recent grief similar to
Mm-hmm.
mine.
Mm-hmm.
But you do look at someone who she's been living with this for 20 years. And so wanted to tap into how she was feeling and still dealing with that grief, and also her journey of turning her pain into purpose. So yeah, there's been no deaths from drains since she passed that law.
Amazing.
And it is, when you meet someone that is inspiring like that, and they've made such inroads, certain people, I was like, oh my gosh, like, let me get in there. What can I
Mm-hmm.
do?
Yeah.
And so Yuri's Law passed this last session, and it's local to Washington State, which is really, it's a baby step.
Mm-hmm.
We designated May 15th as Washington State Water Safety Day. So we're working now on curriculum, how we're kind of blowing it out of the water,
Mm-hmm.
and really baby stepping towards curriculum and getting some pilots up and running so that we can have discussions in schools, and tapping in. There's people around the country that are doing it. There's an amazing program in Hawaii. Obviously, there's Rose Bowl Aquatic Center. Like, there are people that are doing it. It's just so much work to do at a
Mm-hmm.
state by state level, and then a
Right.
city by city level. And that's why I'm going to Washington, D.C. next week, just to kind of say, hi, Washington,
Nice.
D.C. Like,
Nice. Yeah.
what can we do on a national level so that we don't have to lose children and
Right.
then have their parents start an organization in the
Right.
city? It's so much. It's so much to ask.
So congratulations. It is, I know, it's a significant step that you've taken in your state. And I know when you look at the big picture, it can seem daunting. And also pointed out in the documentary is this challenge of, well, with Nancy, there was a specific action, like one thing, like put this $160 filter cover on top of the drain. Done. Right. And there are so many different ways that people drown. Right. And so it's like this harder narrative sell to people about something that is more diffuse than a specific act.
It's very true. And it is what makes this work. There's a few things that make this work incredibly challenging. But you can talk all day about pools, but you're missing those newborn parents who go grab a towel while their child is in the bathtub.
Right.
I sat next to a guy on a plane weeks ago who told me about his son that he found in the toilet at a young age, toddling in, and he was face down in the toilet. Thankfully and gratefully, he survived. And he said, but I know where you were. There's like a 24-hour period where you're waiting for your child to open their eyes.
Right.
What is going to happen?
Right.
And then we have open water. And not only do we have open water, we have rip tides. Like, there are so many things, which is why I baby step back to education.
Mm-hmm.
If we were able to talk to, again, children about, hey, here are these 5 things, know when to go. Let's do a stop, drop, and roll for
Right.
water
Right.
safety,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And I know for sure New York State has just passed a law that just like right after you have a child, you watch a video about purple, it's purple something. Or the shaking. Bottom line, New
Mm-hmm.
York State has just passed a law that parents have to watch a video
Mm.
about drowning before they leave. And so it is
Mm.
like, how do you hit the
Yeah.
segments of society to make that shift? Because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a small shift.
Okay. You've been smattering these things in here. So I want to put them together for everyone. So tell us the main things that parents need to know and the main things that children need to know.
Okay. Um, and I will do my best here because we used to say that there's 7 layers of safety,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a lot to remember when you have
Yeah.
to remember your passwords for 7 different things.
Right.
Already.
Right.
I like to start with know before you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like are there going to be lifeguards where you're going to be? Are there life jackets? Are there rip tides where you're going to be? Um, how strong of a swimmer is my child? We're doing swimming
Mm-hmm.
lessons right now, and we ask parents, and a lot of times it's off. They think their children are stronger swimmers than they are.
Mm-hmm.
So know your environment, and I also like to say that really know where you are, because if I would have had to call 911, I didn't know the address. I knew how to get to
Mm-hmm.
that house. I knew how to get to the pool, but I didn't know the address. So know where you are, that if
Mm-hmm.
you and then another one that is a little bit, after the fact is we should all know CPR. If we would
Mm-hmm.
have performed CPR on Yori, there is a strong chance that he would have been here. So I would say those are the things that I kind of like to say to parents. And most importantly of everything is be a water watcher. Watch your
Mm-hmm.
children when they're in and around water, and get your child
Mm-hmm.
into swimming lessons so that they can
Mm-hmm.
be safe.
Yeah.
I would say, for children, we set up booths a lot in community fairs. And when I'm talking to children, I'm like, do you know how to swim?
Mm-hmm.
So, really getting children excited about swimming and wanting to know how to swim. And two, I say, remember, before you go, always ask for permission. That's something that we need to consider. We tell
Mm-hmm.
our children, hey, look both ways before you cross the street. And it's, hey, I'm going to go in the water. Are you going to be able to watch me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you see how it goes. It's like I keep going,
Yeah.
but I do just think that if we had some sort of information that we could get out there of do not go and save someone unless you are trained.
Mm.
It's called reach, throw, don't go. So we have some stop, drop
Yeah.
rules. It's just not
Yeah.
out there. Reach, throw, but don't go, because so many people drown that way.
Yeah.
And if we had a little something that people knew, hey, if I think that I'm drowning, I need to,
Yeah.
flip, float, and follow. So it's like try and
Mm.
flip on your back, try
Right.
and float, because there
Right.
there is a moment where you're in shock, you take it in water, and what do you do?
Right.
So
Right.
if that is something that is in your mind of, hey, this is about to happen, what did I learn in second grade? What did I learn in fourth grade? And by the way, what did I learn in high school, because they repeated it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Those are all really important. And the last thing you said really jumped out at me from the documentary, which is teaching kids to float buys time for them to gather themselves, but to be saved by others. So just learning when you're in trouble, roll over, float, and to have that skill, which we know you have to learn that skill. But once you have it, you got it. And that can make a huge difference on what transpires.
And guess what? If you have a life jacket on,
Yeah.
floating is much easier. You
Yes.
know.
Yes.
So Yeah, we need to figure out how to get out of our life jackets are not cool, mode.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten there with helmets most of the way, I think, with like skateboarding and biking and motorcycling and snowboarding and skiing, right? Like those used to be really uncool, and
Hmm.
everyone wears them now because head injuries finally people understand are not good things, right? So this is should be the next wave, everyone, right? Like just put on the life jacket. Ah, so much to talk. Okay, so as we're starting to wind down here, pain to purpose. Have you been finding there is a progression from pain to purpose to healing?
A non-linear one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Um, I think honestly, for me, I consider the time that I would be spending raising Yori and the energy that I would be putting into him. Um, and I've put it into my organization, and I've put it into helping other children learn how to swim. Is that sometimes incredibly painful?
Mm-hmm.
Even understanding that our organization is helping others, sometimes being at that pool and seeing those children, it breaks my heart
Mm-hmm.
of why I'm here in this space. But I know that I'm healing. Um, I know that I'm growing, and it's not easy at all. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized and seen how different people handle their grief. And it's not a judgment, it's just an observation of how people get by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my choice has been it's almost an avoidance because I'm so busy doing something else. But I will admit I've taken a bit of a baby step back to really deal
Mm-hmm.
and allow myself the space to kind of sit with my reality,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's constant. This is 5 years.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is coming up on 5 years, and I'm my therapist. I owe so much to. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
she has been amazing and was there during the time we were in the hospital. And she reminds me, like, I send an email to myself, send an email to myself every year. You're feeling this way because of
Yeah.
grief.
Right. Right.
The body
It
keeps
keeps the
score.
score. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Nancy, 20 years into it, described the knife, the sharp knife, and that over time it gets dull, but it's still a knife, but it dulls. I know this is very new, 5 years into it. Do you yet have a similar start of a similar experience or not yet?
I have learned um, that love heals. People say time heals. And in my experience, it has been leaning into love, and being able to open your heart after a tragedy like that happens, because you close it off. It becomes dark. Um, it, you're broken. And when you allow love back in, that, in my experience, is what has been able to allow me the grace and space to
Mm,
laugh again and to enjoy simple things again. So the time, I don't know about the time.
Yeah.
I don't know when people
Yeah.
say that, but love.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you. It's just Mike's, that it
Yeah.
is just what I've been walking with, and I'm walking alongside of. Doug is one of my best friends.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
talk often, and he's handling his grief in a completely different way, and will just not tap into the
Yeah.
love. His wife actually passed away.
Oh.
So talk about
Oh,
the
wow.
dis-ease of losing a
Wow.
child. She had previously had cancer, and that grief,
Oh, wow.
it gets you. And so,
Mm.
Doug has stepped into a moment of losing his wife, his child, and then not too far after, Elena. And
Wow.
so
Mm.
I
Mm.
I have seen what this loss can
Mhm.
do. Again,
Yeah.
a preventable loss
Yeah.
has completely
Yeah.
shifted and changed,
Wow.
their family dynamic in his life.
It's just unbelievable what the universe gives people. Okay, I was not expecting that. That's a lot. And my heart goes out to Doug. Doug, you are a powerful man if you are listening, and very powerful man and strong. Okay, Chezik, it's time for the parent footprint moment question.
Okay.
I'm having trouble transitioning after that one. Okay. Tell us about a time that you became aware of yourself as an individual, as a parent, or even an awareness of your own parents, and that new awareness had a positive impact on your life, your children, and or those you love.
I don't want to cheat here, but I feel like I have a couple of moments.
Go for it.
I will step into the first one of just recognizing these moments of solitude. Um, and I remember being in high school. I had to transfer schools pretty abruptly and last minute, and um, it was a massive high school. And being this the only person um, surrounded by these kids coming in the middle of the school year, um, I really became aware of the ability to shift and change who you
Mm.
are at any given moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I consider, my mom is from a really small town, and so many times people put who you are on you, and they
Mm-hmm.
expect you to be the same person all of the time. And in high school, my junior year, I had awareness of the ability to evolve and become anything.
Mm.
Dressing or anything. So that's like kind of a minor something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But again, those moments when you just realize how massive this planet is really, like,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that it's going into a high school moment. And then, the other one for me, obviously, my whole life really shifted. Being in a hospital with a child that is near death or dying, and advocating and becoming the only thing that this child has to possibly keep them alive,
Mm-hmm.
was for me as a parent. Childbirth for me was like incredible and amazing. I know that sounds crazy, but it
Mm-hmm.
does shift you in that moment. And so there's that shift. But being in that hospital and feeling like I was the only thing that could potentially keep Yori alive, and then having to step back and realizing the lack of control. It doesn't matter how many people you know. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter. Some things are complete. It's that release.
Yeah.
And so I became very aware of myself as a parent, and even more so how much my kids need me beyond what I ever knew. And also the ability to release a little bit of my control. I was a 4 kids. Oh my gosh, we are here and we are here and this is what we're doing and this, that, and the other. And it was a humbling experience, an incredibly humbling experience that I now just understand things on a different level.
That only someone who has gone through what you have gone through and the others who have can even remotely understand.
Yeah, and only if you want to understand it, it's a constant. I'm constantly peeling layers to get to raw, know.
Yeah. Which you courageously did in your documentary. And that's part of the power of showing raw humanity at its core rawness at times. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you, Yori, for being here and your role in all of this. And also, as a result, lots and lots of people get to know Yori now, which I think is a really good thing.
Thank you. I honestly appreciate you taking and making the time to watch and to share, with your folks, because obviously it's something I'm passionate about, but I truly believe that it will save lives. Like, I believe that Yori is saving lives. So,
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell everyone where they can find the film, where they can find your nonprofit work, and everything related that they need to know.
Okay, I appreciate that. So the film is called Drowning in Silence. It's currently on many platforms: Apple TV, Amazon. I believe it's on YouTube, even Xbox. So check your places where you do stream. And you can also go to drowninginsilence.com. We have some scenes that didn't make the film, some more information, even places where you can find swim lessons in your area. And speaking of that, we are, doing swim lessons out in the Washington State world with No More Under, the nonprofit, and that is nomoreunder.org. And I really do just appreciate it's about talking about it, right? That's really what it's about. So watching the film or watching the trailer and being able to say, hey, did you know? And hey, did you know? And the more that we have the conversation, a real conversation about it, that is when change happens.
Yes. And it's happening. It's happening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything that we can do to continue to support your mission, we are all in. So thank you for telling your story and your authenticity and your mission.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me and just for creating an environment where we can have this conversation. So thank you again.
All right, everyone. This is a really important episode. Please share this with absolutely everyone so you can help save lives and get the word out and continue to help Yori's life have the meaning and purpose that it has. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for your 5-star reviews. Continue to do your best to be that person you want your child to become, and ask yourself that guiding question I ask myself each day: what footprint do you want to leave? This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Parent Footprint with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Strummerman, composed and performed by Pro Tunes. Artwork is by Garrett Ross. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parent Footprint Podcast and on Twitter at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, go to exactlyrightmedia.com.